Hey, here we are. Hey, Chewy, good evening. Hi, man.
Oh, good.
You doing well?
Yeah, not too bad. Been an exciting couple of days.
Yeah, tell me why.
Oh, we had, so we got some renovations going on at our house, and we had 2 lots of tradies turn up end of last week. And then when everything was supposed to get going, we had a whole bunch of sewage flowing out all over our backyard. And it was super good. So we had to flag off all the tradies and had the council come up. And now there is a 2.5 meter deep, 4 meter by 4 meter hole in my backyard. And they've had the council's had to scrape off all like the top layer of soil and disinfect it and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's good.
Hang on,
I'm real stoked.
4 meters. Well, it's a square 4 meters by 4 meters and down 2 meters.
Yeah,
because that's like the size of the room that I'm sitting in.
It's a big hole, man. It's a big hole.
So, are you going to use the opportunity to build a little pool out the back?
Well, it almost was a pool, but not one that you'd want to swim in. So yeah, no, super good.
And always the question when the council turns up, if it's an issue with their stuff, they sort it out and pay for it. If it's an issue with your stuff, it's an issue for you for payment. What's happened? Is it a council issue?
It's their stuff. So apparently the main sewage line goes under our backyard and has clogged with lots of awesome stuff that shouldn't go in the toilet. And then that's just sort of backflowed up in one of our exterior drains and gone everywhere. But of course, it happened on a Saturday when there's no one to get hold of.
Yeah.
But in saying that, first thing on Monday, they were around investigating, trying to work out where the drain was, because last time anybody saw it was in 1960.
You should have messaged me, because on Saturday I had a Dunedin City Councillor in here having a conversation about the mayoralty race.
I should come in and fix my sewage line.
Hey, so tonight on the show, a little bit later on, we want to have a look at there's some commentary from Guy Williams this morning on Louis C.K. A couple of comedians going at it, I guess. Guy Williams being a comedian going at Louis C.K. We're going to have a look at that and what it means. And is he right? I guess that's what I want to know. Is Guy Williams right? So we'll have a look at that. And also, I'm really keen to have a look. There's quite a lot going on in politics at the moment because the people are in the House, MPs are in the House. And watching the performance yesterday of Christopher Luxon, and we kind of commented on this last night, Chewy, that the way he was delivering his questions in the House and the way he was coming across in the House were quite reserved. And I genuinely wasn't trying to be disrespectful to him, because it felt like the Prime Minister ate him alive, but it was more about he's still new to the game, and he needs to learn how this House works properly. Watching Nicola Willis in the House today, I'm like, wow. Is this the leader that National should have? Is this the person? Because certainly when it came to the debate in the House, she came across today far more adversarial, far more direct, far more, let's say, powerful than Luxon did yesterday. And actually, she had some good fodder to work with, because this whole debacle from Labour around tax on Kiwisavers is a huge own goal. And, National should be hammering them on it, because as has been proven in the space of 24 hours, the public don't want it. Hence their embarrassing back down. So we'll have a look at that as well before the end of the hour.
Yeah, nice. I got some thoughts.
Really? That's good that you're here.
Unusual.
If only people were here with their thoughts. Thank you to all the people who are joining and saying hello. G'day, Tilly. G'day, Simple. Good to see you guys all there. Ro agrees with me. Swimming pool, I think, is what's required at your place. If it's 4x4, what about spa pool? And it could be a spa pool that you just slot into there, which means it's at ground level.
It would just be about the bubbles. Where are the bubbles coming from? I'd be a little bit concerned. So, just not fun.
So let's start off with the first part of the show, following on from a conversation on Thursday night with Dunedin-based activist Sina Brown-Davis, talking about the arrests made to the two main hosts at Counterspin Media. Sina did indeed travel up to Christchurch to be there at their court appearance. So we welcome to the show Sina Brown-Davis. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Yeah,
doing well?
Well, didn't take much encouragement for you guys to get us up there. Yeah.
So I guess I've got some clips and some bits and bobs I want to play, but I reckon the first thing we should do is tell us what happened today. Tell us about your day, what you actually did outside was it the High Court or just the Christchurch Court? What was it in Christchurch?
I think that were they charged today? I'm not sure. It was their first appearance in court.
Right.
We had actually blindsided them because instead of advertising the event on social media, we embargoed that to 7 in the morning on the day and just did it through trusted networks. So they didn't even have a clue that we were turning up.
So tell us what happened when you turned up. Walk us through it.
Okay, they were amassing across the road, and I see all the usual suspects, and these are people that I've just laughed at and watched on social media. Yeah, so preparing myself actually to see people like Arps physically, and who's that other prick, Carl Chapman. Yeah,
right.
All the usual suspects. They were all there, and they were like acting tough in front of the cameras. And then we came, our mate gave our banner, we pulled it out, and all the cameras just turned straight away to us.
So the cameras left.
Just like, you left them and just like, kia ora. It's like, oh no, kia ora, we like journalists. Yeah. No, my haere mai. Yeah. And it was just, we had the moral high ground, so we took it. And the opportunity there wasn't just being there, was just to get our narrative out. But these people have been unopposed in that city. Do I have to throw shade on Oti like I did on Pōneke? I am.
Up to you.
Yeah, well, we had to kickstart the anti-racism movement, and we don't put up with this shit in Oti, neither should you. These people, vile National Front, vile neo-Nazis, and Arps was calling himself a fascist. He was proud to be a fascist. I'm thinking, hey, you're a clown. It's not a really good public thing to say. You're making advertising for me, and I'm not even fucking paying you.
Did you? We've got some clips we're going to play of what was happening up there, and I've been speaking to Kelvyn Morgan today, who was there as well, doing some filming. And one of the things I was interested in, I wasn't obviously there, so I want to get your take on this.
Yeah.
Is it seemed that Hannah was kind of doing a lot of the talking when they were in front of the cameras. Is that like? Oh, let me play a bit of a clip first of all. So this is in front of the cameras. Obviously, they're talking to the media and they're talking to the crowd. I'll play a little bit of it. Then I want to ask you that question again. Have a look.
All right. Well, I think journalists in New Zealand deserve to give the people the information that they want.
It is
and
painful.
deserve to ask questions. The maggots are too close. And thanks everybody for your support. Freedom of speech is something that is worth fighting for in this country, and you as Kiwis deserve to know the truth about whatever you want to know the truth about. And it's really important that we stand, because they want you guys silenced, and they've gone after us as a fishing expedition to find anything they can.
Look, there's so much to already address in those 48 seconds.
Oh, gosh.
The job of the press is to give you all the information that you want. That's what she said. And and the other thing is going for a fishing expedition. I thought about that today. To actually get a warrant to go and search electronic equipment involves going to a court and convincing a court that there is a reason to go there. So it's not a fishing expedition.
No, and please don't. They're trying to make it their freedom of speech narrative bullshit. No, you spruiked an objectionable object that had been banned, and you continued to do it. So don't pretend that it's this free speech to say that you can share that terrorist shit around. That's like terror. That's like sharing violence. So don't spit and try to change it to that. And actually, considering how cocky they usually are, they really looked a little bit broken to me today.
Yeah, well, actually, Kelvyn says this in this next tweet down here. I think he mentions. Oh no, it was that one up there, wasn't it? A clearly overwhelmed Hannah Spierer outside the Christchurch District Court, surrounded by mainstream media and supporters straight after being bailed this morning, ludicrously claiming to be the real Fourth Estate. This was the calm before the storm, i.e. launching into a rant of epic proportions. We'll play this little clip as well. It's titled Hannah Spierer and Kelvyn Alp immediately after their court appearance. Both had to be forced into the dock, which we'll look at shortly, before being shut down by the judge, remanded on bail without plea until 21 September. They remain banned from social media Alp thinks he's going to bring the government down at trial. There's one comment from this, I think, either this one or the next clip that I want to have a bit of a quick listen.
No.
Are you
We'll
gagged?
never allow ourselves to be gagged anyway. Even if it was an order, we'd tell them to get fucked.
Okay, really important. Are you gagged? No. We'd never allow ourselves to be gagged. Even if it was an order, we'd tell them to get fucked. Now, there is an order, and they are gagged. They've been ordered off social media. Now, what I was confused by is a man saying, we will never be gagged, and if there's an order, we'll go against it anyway. There is an order, and they're currently not going against it. They're adhering to the order because they're off social media. So that seems like, I mean, if I'm being polite, which I don't need to be, but bravado at the extreme, because if he was truly going to tell them to get fucked, as he said, he'd be on social media, and he's not because it's a court order. So there seems to be some inconsistency there, shall we say, Sina?
Oh, just a tad.
Yeah.
Just a tad. Yeah. Oh, I have never been around so many violent, toxic, masculine men in my life, I think. They're like, like, don't try to be pit bulls, but they bark like chihuahuas. It's like, please. Oh my God. Yeah.
The fact that I think it was actually you that said it on Twitter, trying to pretend it's a free speech issue. Maybe don't have Christchurch's most prominent Nazis come out and support. Would have been a smart move. I mean, Arps loves calling himself Arpsy the Nazi. He's not exactly like in the closet with that.
Yeah, and they're all triggered. They're all triggered by us, triggered by our banner, triggered by a cordial, by our songs, by Dancing Queen.
Give us an example. What was your interaction with them? Give us an example of how you say they were triggered.
Our co-operators, we don't aggravate them, we don't engage. So just by dancing, and he'd like nut off, be nutting off us about Muslims and this and that, and I'm proud to be a fascist. And we had some hardcore little old ladies there trying to stand over them, sort of be the like big standover bro. And it's like, bitch, please, we're not here for you. And just the complete anger that we were like supporting our Muslim community was horrible to watch, actually.
Are you glad you went?
I'm glad we did it. We got our narrative out. We did the right thing. We stood with the community. Yeah. And we centered Muslim voices and brought it back to why they're in court. They're in court because the chief coroner banned false flag conspiracy thing they were spruiking about the terrorist attack. So just like Alan Jones, they will be going down in flames. Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about this last night. I did a debunking piece on something else to do with COVID last night, and I realized I was sitting in the middle of my thing. I've never banned anybody, and I was like, oh no, hang on, I have banned one person, and I banned someone from the YouTube channel who was claiming that the Christchurch massacre was a false flag. And I'm like, sorry, I have quite my line in the sand is quite a long way down the track. I'm okay to put up with quite a bit, but for me, that's a line. Sorry, if you say that, you're done. There's no coming back.
The horrifying thing with that is that it's not only a lie, but it provides the environment where that sort of violence can occur again. And like, hello, what have we learned since March 15th? We gave this guy too long a leash to spread that, and we should have been stomping down about racism and Islamophobia after the attack. Yeah. No, these guys took advantage of the pandemic and unleashed a whole new wave of like extremely racist people with violent intent.
And on an interpersonal level, I mean, and I know what you're saying is fair and it's big and it's the whole big issue, but think about the poor fucking families. Just even that, the people who have lost mums and dads and brothers and sisters and children,
yes,
being told actively in the media or publicly, you guys are all bullshit actors and you didn't lose your loved one. It's like that's enough just to be like, even if there's no bigger lesson, go fuck yourselves. I mean, people here have lost family members. It's one of the more abhorrent things.
No humanity, no respect. I remember I was watching the Alex Jones trial. And one of the mother of the victims, oh my heart, and then, we all very much focused on honouring the victims and the whānau as part of our kaupapa today. At the end of today, we took flowers to the memorial for the
Oh,
People
nice.
that were killed. Just to be solemn, just to remember, this is the context. This is what should be the focus, not your fucking ranty, vanity, one-man insurrection bloody project. And he's failed. He's failed in other things. I mean, yeah, I shouted out to him. I couldn't help it. I was dignified because we were doing solidarity, but when he last heard my voice, it was like, enjoy your lag. I'm a President abolitionist politically, but for people like that, I don't know, right-wing gulag, I'm not sure.
I want to. Do you want to jump in the outro? I'm gonna play the one news bit as well because there's a piece I want to see in there. But do you want to get in first?
Oh yeah, no, go for the
All
news piece.
So here's the actual clip that was on One News. It was only an hour and a half, but there was getting quite a lot of coverage today. I mean, I saw that, like, we all have these little computers in our pockets, and about half a dozen messages came up when they refused to go into the dock. So it was national news at that point. TVNZ gave it 90 seconds, but there's one particular point in this that I want to have a look at because I listened to this live. I was making dinner. I had my headphones on, listening to One News playing, and there was a particular point where I laughed out loud. See if you can pick it. See if you can pick the moment where Kelvyn out, who is trying to make a serious analogy and to drive his point home, loses his way a little bit. Just have a listen for yourself.
The tension was palpable as the far-right activists waited to enter the court. Extra security and police in place this morning
Do your job. Arrest the government behind treason and terrorism.
as a large crowd of the Counterspin hosts supporters and anti-government protesters rallied on the steps.
Are you going to tell the truth today, mainstream media?
An anti-protest too, trying to counteract some of the vitriol.
We gather in the spirit of peace and aroha.
Inside court, the pair refused to enter the dock and had to be forcibly moved by security guards.
Because it's not our place. We're not cattle. We're not a ship that needs to be what a dock is.
Did you get that?
Oh my god!
Did you get that?
You were not underselling that at all. We're not a
Where'd you go? Plundered, and he said plundered. Like plundered means like robbed, doesn't it? So I want to play it again because it's my favorite part of this whole story for today. Here we go. Listen again. Here we go. One more time.
Plundered. We're not a ship that needs cattle.
Oh, that
he's
ship
not real
sailed
good
years ago.
without the auto cue. He's not too good.
That's what a dock is.
I love it. It's my favorite bit.
We're not cattle. We're not a ship that needs to be plundered. That's what a dock is. We're the captains of our vessels.
We're the captains of our vessels.
We're the captains of our vessels.
Entry deemed an objection.
And then we just talk about the actual story. So there, I'm intrigued sometimes, and this is a little bit of a tangent, as to why people believe what they believe. And in this kind of world, there seems to be grifters. They're going for a graft. They're grifters. Or there seems to be people who have bought into it wholeheartedly. And I get the sense that the people who have bought into it, these are the people up the top I'm talking about. I think you can fool people down the bottom all sorts of ways. I think the people up the top who have bought into it wholeheartedly, my opinion is, they don't ever come across as all that smart, all that critical, all that sort of the ability to work things out. And I'm interested in what you guys think about that. I mean, I kind of want to say, to be respectful, I guess I don't have to be respectful to someone who's denying the Christchurch massacre. You know, why would you need to be? But in general, it seems that they're either grifters up the top, selling a lie that they know is a lie, which is disinformation to make money, or they don't have a very intellectual or academic brain to be able to figure things out. What would you guys think about that?
He's a true believer that's like have had many attempts to try and like take power by force, but that absolute belief in like a world of bullshit, it's like I can't understand it. Yeah. And just actually a lot of it is like carbon copy from the States it's really easy to see where a lot of the shit comes from, but they didn't pick a very good player to like spread their bullshit if that was their top choice.
Actually, Ro has said, I asked that question at the start that why Hannah was fronting it. Ro has said quite clearly after I pointed out that kind of brain fade, and that's why the little lady fronts it. So that was Ro's position. Maybe that is the case. I don't know. Anyway, so what's next, Sina? You're up there in Christchurch. You were doing your thing. You were making your voice heard, and obviously they've been released on bail. I'm assuming whatever until the third week, I think it is, of September. So that's about a month away, a little bit under 3 weeks away. What's the next step for you guys?
I'm going to have a break next week. I'm going to like eat lots of snacks, binge watch murder mysteries, play with my poodle, cuddle my husband, beat him in Scrabble, and have that sort of week. Yeah.
Oh, it's very good. Shelby, we lost you there for a bit. The old computer obviously had a bit of a brain fart. You want to wrap up with any of the stuff we were just talking about?
Look, I just wanted to make one comment, and I sort of danced around this at the end of last week, is that Christchurch is letting this happen. And if you're in Christchurch and you don't like it, you need to stand up. You need to say it's not good enough. And we mentioned it, that this can be scary. Nobody wants to be the first, especially when it's a group like we've seen at this protest. But there are other people like you. This is just the start of it. But Christchurch has always had a rep. It's always had Nazis bubbling away in the background, and people have just let it happen. These guys. It was
a good act of solidarity to come and do this for our comrades and Ōtautahi, for people like Byron that's been at the receiving end of these nutters here.
Yeah.
Just to show that here's your little launch. I actually, if you look at it, that was the little launch of Antifa Ōtautahi. Yeah. They've got some hearty, strong people here. But people need to be seen. If you came out in your thousands after the terrorist attack in the massacre, well, you need to come out now to honour those people, so their story doesn't get forgotten in these grifters' bullshit.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, this needs to be the start of something, and it needs to be the end of their thing.
Yeah.
It's horrible that they're building this narrative of a lie around something truly, truly horrible. So stand up and push these guys off their little rallies that they have on the Bridge of Remembrance, which just makes me furious.
Please, Ōtautahi, don't make Oti come up again. No shade.
Before we wrap up, Sina, there are a bunch of people in the chat who are saying similar things. As Kulna has said, Kia ora, Sina. I just wanted to say again, you and everyone else involved in fronting these ignorants are absolute legends. You deserve a nice break after a week. Please enjoy the steaks.
I just want to mention the thing that touched me the most today is that a sister had her brother killed in the attack, and she said that part of my kōrero talking about giving out araha and having their backs really touched her.
Oh, wow.
That made me cry. Actually, for me, after I read that, that's the highlight of our day. That's the sweetness of our day, that if we can give one of the victims' whānau some heart, that today was all worth it.
Yeah. All right, Sina Chewy, I know that you've been starring some messages here. Is there anything you want to bring up before Sina heads off?
This was in relation to Hannah's comment. She's there to put a soft face on everything. Yeah. She's been seen speaking about the traditional role of women and just nutso stuff like women shouldn't have the vote and stay in the kitchen. Coming from a woman, that's just brainworms. That sort of echoing what I was saying before. I feel sorry for having associations with neo-Nazis.
Why is that? Why is it Christchurch? Why does Christchurch?
It's always been a thing.
Why?
Like my whole life, there has always been skinhead gangs. And Christchurch has always had an undercurrent of racism and elitism sort of bubbling away under the surface. It matters who your families are, what boats you came on, and what schools you went to. I think that just encourages it.
I wonder if it's because it becomes self-fulfilling. Maybe there was a foothold of that group in there in some time, and then now that foothold means there's a presence. That presence means it attracts more people to it. When it attracts more people to it, it continues on. It might just be as simple as that.
Yeah,
But I
it
guess
should have just been stopped. Yeah.
yeah, but I guess the question is, why was it there to start off with, sort of thing?
I mean, Kyle Chapman got his biggest successes, such as they are, in Christchurch. Arps is from Christchurch. Alps is from Christchurch.
Seeing Kyle Chapman was confronting for me because he's Mr. I firebomb the marae. So, I'm
but we
holding
don't
myself
talk
in,
about that, do we?
I'm holding
he's a
myself in
reformed
dignity because I'm here in solidarity for a Muslim whānau. But oh man, if you could read my mind, can you read my mind, Chewy?
No, I
Yeah.
think I can.
We both can, actually.
Yeah.
Anything else you're doing?
It was really good to sing our Hare Atu Pukukahua song at them. They were laughing at it, but it was just my nursery rhyme song of a collection of very good Māori curses. So yeah, laugh at me, smile at me, but I'm taking the piss out of you in a very deep way, and you don't even know it. That's how silly they are.
Scout says we can never let them speak unopposed again. None of us.
Absolutely.
Because that's how they gain ground. I guess that's what we're saying. If they have
Exactly.
presence, that will either attract more people to it, or it needs to be exposed to what it is. Either way.
And the same contrast, you've got your horrible, nasty fascist world, angry, toxic, I don't know, roid rage men. Then you've got our fabulous community, rainbow, mana whenua world, and we're dancing to Patti LaBelle, honouring the dead. So yeah, take your pick.
Scout's also done this comment, which I cannot leave. They tried so hard.
Kia ora, Scout.
And failed so bad. And I
Sounds like a
assume
song.
this is left unsaid. Because in the end, it doesn't really matter. Linkin Park.
Yeah. They tried so hard. All right. Hey, thanks, Sina. Always love having you on. You're welcome anytime you want to come. Just fire us a message and jump on, even if you've got nothing to talk about. You just want to hang out. Just come
I know. I'm just happy to give Oti Poti the scoop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
We rock. I'm not really proud to be, because I'm an Aucklander. I didn't realise that Oti Poti was really lefty. I know there are elitist elements, but there's a strong working class leftiness about our city, and I love it.
I think that comes with the university. It's because the university is such a high
The
impact.
workers is good unionists in Oti Poti too.
Oh, yeah. The railway workshop.
Railways, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Hey, Sina, we might see you at Wolf on Saturday afternoon.
You want to? No, I'm making me serious. I'll bring my dog.
Maybe we might see you there. We'll talk later in the week. And,
All right, let's sort that out and hang out with Dudley. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. All right. All the best.
Okay. Thank you for the time, whānau. Pō Māori here.
Cheers, Sina.
So there you go. Sina Brown-Davis joining us again, and thank you for that very much. Also, big thank you to Simple with the super chat Simple. I did see it, Simple. It was the wrong time to bring it up in the middle of that conversation. Simple for the $17 super chat. Hi Pat, thanks for posting the conspiracy busting video clip. When are you going to sort Patreon or some other system for us to provide you with some dollars to support the content you're providing? To be honest with you, Simple, I have half finished the Patreon page. I've half finished. In fact, look after yourself, Joey. Talk amongst yourselves.
I'm working on the OnlyFans, which I don't think is going to be as successful. But it's all about making sure that we have multiple revenue streams. And by God, I hope Pat comes back soon, because just saying these words is making me feel dirty. We do appreciate all the support, and especially with the work that we've been doing. Thank God he's back.
So part of the Patreon, I think, to start off with, some of these.
Nice.
Some of these is that's yellow and blue. That's for the Otago, and this is the stealth one. You see that? Black on black.
Nice.
You like that? Black on black.
And for the OnlyFans, we're going to have that same logo, but on like nipple pasties. They'd be very tasteful.
So the answer to your question, Simple, we can probably take that down now. It's been up for long enough, but thank you for that. The answer to your question is I'm sort of halfway through the middle of it, and I'm just figuring all the stuff out. And what I'll probably do is set up some merch as well. And, yes, I mean, shall I peek behind the curtain for a second? I was talking to New Zealand On Air today about their funding sources and stuff, and we are completely ineligible for it because we're an independent media source, primarily on YouTube. So we don't have a mainstream affiliation, so we're completely incapable of applying for anything. So yes, we are going to have to find out funding ourselves and figure it out. Be that viewer and listener supported, or be that sponsors, or be that investors, or something else. And it's not like, how do I say this? It's not that we're trying to go, yes, let's make a shit ton of money off this, but it's like, you know what, we work hard at this, and it would be good not to have Chewy go off to do a day job, and for me to not work for 10 hours for nothing in the studio today. But it's okay. It's all fine at the moment. It's a building process. It's a building process. Anyway, Kookie says a car sticker. Okay. Yeah, all right. We'll think about it. One of the problems is you need a couple of grand first to get the merch, to then actually sell the merch, and so there's other things that come with it as well. Okay. So to answer your question, maybe I should just put my A into G and sort out whatever the Patreon membership. The other thing is memberships on Facebook. Not on Facebook, sorry, on YouTube as well. Maybe I should put my A into G and try and sort that out before the end of the weekend. I'll see what I can do, peeps. I'll see what I can do. Hey, let's have a look at a really, really interesting moment in the House today. And I'm actually sort of in general not wanting to talk so much about the Grant Robertson part of this, although I will, and I did notice there was a comment earlier about, I didn't star it, unfortunately. There was a comment earlier about Destiny's, what's his name? Brian Tamaki at some stage. Can I find it? See if you can find that, Joey, the chat in there about Brian Tamaki. There was a very interesting piece, interaction in the House today between Grant Robertson and Nicola Willis. Now, the thing is, Grant Robertson is devastating in the House. He is very, very skilled at what he does, and he's very, very good at what he does. However, at the moment, Labor has got a black eye, and they've got that black eye because of this ludicrous thing they did with Kiwisaver, trying to tax it, and en masse, the public went, no. And within 24 hours of the announcement of a policy, they had to retract it. A terrible look for them, albeit quick. It's like pulling the plaster off, getting rid of it. And the opposition has every right at the moment to be crowing about it, like every right at the moment. This is how politics works in general. I will say, though, I will also say the flip side to that is the Labour Party did something. The country went, fuck no. And the Labour Party went, okay, fine. So I think the one takeaway from it for the Labour Party is they had a quick response to something that was criticised by many, and they made a change. It's a little bit like the cost of living payment that we talked about last night. Cost of living payment was a rollout that worked, and really I think overall was of great success. There were some people receiving cost of living payments that shouldn't have, and the opposition used that as criticism, and I think that's fair enough. I mean, I think it was a little bit OTT when you looked at the numbers and what could have been and should have been. However, the second round of payments, which are going out, I guess, tomorrow, there's 30,000 people that they're not sure of, that they've managed to figure out these people may or may not be in New Zealand, and so they've put another layer of protection in for 31,000 people. Now, what that means is there was a problem that was identified 4 weeks ago. Labor has tried to address it, and they've put something else in place. Labor addressed something yesterday in this taxing Kiwisaver. A huge problem with that was the public went, no, and they addressed it today. So I guess the one positive for Labor about this whole situation, Chewy, is they're responding quickly at the moment to these things. Now, you might say that is because they don't want it to reflect in the polls. In other words, they don't want the black eye, or you might say that's good governance. I mean, the political part of me kind of goes, well, they're just trying to look better. I would hope that the optimist part of me would be that they're actually listening to the vibe, and when they realize they're off, they move away from it. Because taxing Kiwisaver seems ridiculous to me. However,
I mean, you can only do that so much, right?
Yeah.
Like you can do something that isn't received well, and you start getting a hiding in the House for it, and then you go, okay, cool. No, we've heard you. Put the pitchforks down. We're not going to do it again. But if you keep doing that, then you just seem incompetent. So hopefully, we won't see too much of that. It is good to see a government sort of realize, shit, we've got it wrong there. I mean, you've got to look at what the purpose of Kiwisaver is. Before it existed, New Zealanders just didn't save for retirement, and they just went, superannuation will keep me safe, while the government goes, oh fuck, we don't even know if we're going to be able to keep super going. People just didn't save before Kiwisaver. So anything that enables people to put money aside for their retirement has to be looked at a good thing, rather than going, oh, we're missing a little bit of tax off the contributions there.
Simon makes a fair point. 2020 manifesto that they wouldn't address any more taxes, and then they tried to. So that's the thing. It's like we always say, and we're blunt and open about this, we approach the show from a left-wing perspective, a left-leaning / left-wing perspective, but we walk and chew gum at the same time. This was bad by Labour, and I'm glad that they saw the error of their ways and changed it. And they're going to get a beating from the national opposition for a little while because of the thing that they try to push through, snack through. Look, I'm comfortable with any of those emotive words because they did something wrong and they needed to get a bit of a wake up for it. The good thing is, and this was interesting about the cost of living payment, is that I was surprised. Well, I was surprised, not surprised. I think National's being more disingenuous with their criticisms today about the cost of living payments because Labour's actually done something. Now, fair enough that the National opposition were critical 4 weeks ago, but now Labour's done something about that, and they're using the same talking points that they used 4 weeks ago, but they're not relevant today because they've done something about it. So it'll be interesting to see now that Labour's given themselves a black eye, but they've dropped the tax. Will National continue to beat that dead horse, which they probably will, and how much will they get? How much will National get out of this? How much, I can't think of the saying, but how much will they be able to milk it for their own benefit in the polls and that kind of stuff? I mean,
like many things, when National goes on the offensive, I always feel like they've got to kind of pull their punches lest someone turn around and go, well, hang on, if you're going to rabbit on about Labour clipping the ticket on Kiwisaver and taking away from hardworking Kiwis' retirement funds, are we going to talk about you guys slashing the kickstart? Are we going to talk about you guys slashing the government matching contributions in a tax year? Because you guys did both of that, and in fact, you stopped the Cullen Fund for so many years.
I think the Prime Minister, that's what the Prime Minister did yesterday when she was talking to Luxon in the House, and she basically pointed out, with the criticisms they were having about cost of living payments yesterday, that when the Prime Minister came back and said, you guys want to give tax breaks to all landlords, she didn't say it as fairly as I'm saying, which is we might be fair to criticize Labour because they stuffed up with some of these payments to a few handful of landlords who shouldn't have got them. But you guys want to reduce taxes on all landlords. Your reduction is going to take a heck of a lot more out of the tax coffers than our era was. Now I'm explaining it the way that it is. Obviously, a politician struggles to say the word era, although I did notice that the finance minister does, I think, talk about this being an embarrassing mistake they made. So there is a bit of mea culpa going on there as well.
I'll call a spade a spade. Everybody appreciates that.
Shall we look? I flipped it around. Actually, we'll come back to the Grant Robertson bit because now we are talking quite heavily about the actual story. Let's have a look at it. This is the government makes embarrassing U-turn on Kiwisaver, just to keep people up to date should they have not seen it yet.
About 24 hours ago, the government had a tax plan which would eat into Kiwisaver's savings.
That's crazy.
I don't think it's a good idea at all.
The plan was to tidy up some GST anomalies.
It was a proposal to even up GST on fees paid to Kiwisaver providers.
It would mean all providers, not just the small guys, would be subject to the standard GST rate of 15%. But IRD says the tax would take in an extra $225 million per year, and it'll likely be investors, aka savers, paying for it through higher fees.
I wonder if that had been, they cost out things when the government's bringing in new policy and new law. I wonder if that had been costed out, because if there's two things. If Labour wasn't aware of that's where the costings would go, then that's terrible. And if they were aware of that's where the costings would go and they still wanted to do it anyway, then that feels completely contrary to how they should be operating in this current day and age about making the actual Kiwisaver owners of the accounts be paying for it. So that intrigues me, actually. I wouldn't mind some a bit more information about that.
And that would affect returns. For example, in a Kiwisaver account with $100,000 in a fund charging 1%, the saver would lose more than $21,000 over 25 years.
$1,000 a year.
The plan did not go down well.
This is going to impact the well-being of retiring New Zealanders forever.
We think there are much smarter and much wiser ways to actually tidy up the bill.
What's more, the tax tweak with massive implications for Kiwi investors was introduced unannounced and buried in a gigantic tax omnibus bill.
They almost tried to
No
get this
question.
through without us knowing about it.
You thought you could just sneak this through.
Not at all.
But the immediate backlash and political rally cries of
Our retirement tax
meant less than 24 hours later, screech, a U-turn.
We think the furore around this was denting public confidence in Kiwisaver.
The smaller providers saying this isn't a good fix is what dropped the axe.
We were expecting some of the smaller fund managers to support this. None of them have been.
We've heard very clearly from them they don't believe that's what it would achieve. And so simple, we won't change it.
They can say whatever they want. The bottom line is they can dress it up any which way they wish, but the reality is this was a tax on hardworking Kiwis.
This is embarrassing.
Yes.
Embarrassing maybe for the minister, but the flip-flop fantastic for these Kiwis.
So it's not happening.
It's a pretty risky way to check policy, isn't it?
Woo! And look, once again, like we call a spade, the difficulty with the prime. Remember, I said, you were not Australia, but last night I said, that the standards that Leader Luxon is putting on Labor, at some stage those standards will have to come back if he would be prime minister, and he'll have to live up to them as well, or it'll be hypocritical. Likewise, the prime minister has just said tonight, she's basically said, we heard and they didn't like it, so yep, it's gone. There will be other policy between now and the election time that people won't like and the government won't change. So it's you got to be really careful in this game, because there's these things called cameras that record and remember what you say, and then it can be played back, and you can go, but hang on, you said in this instance where the people basically spoke, for want of a better word, and it wasn't going to work like we thought it would, so we changed it. I assure you there will be policy between now and the next election where that will be applicable as well, and they won't. Like it's just not going to be the case. So yeah, maybe it's nice seeing the finance minister being a bit more honest, saying yes, it's embarrassing, and maybe the PM still trying to put on a bit of a putting a face on to make sure that they put the appearance, that they attempt to have the appearance of being less embarrassed than they really are.
Like I said though, you can't keep doing it. That's their one.
Well, is it their one? Is it there two? Because there's the cost of living payment a month ago. So there's a couple that they've had to, they haven't retracted that, but they've certainly had to change that and tweak that. Because, let's be honest, we don't want payments going to people who don't deserve them or don't need them. They shouldn't be getting them in an ideal world. So that's not necessarily a back down, but a tweaking. Is a tweaking okay? Or is that still a bit of a black eye?
Yeah,
because what they can do is they can start to paint the narrative. These guys can't run anything. Everything they touch, they either cancel or have to change because they've got no, they've got no organizational skills.
Yeah, as you said, I think what you said last night about the cost of living payments was quite pertinent. Like, if it's going to cost you more money to make sure that your net has no holes in it, and it takes longer because of that, then I think there's a fair answer. But Labor have not been great at explaining it. That hasn't been communicated out at all. Do they just turn to IRD and go, look, anybody's paid tax in the last year, give them some money?
Well, I said last night as well, for people who weren't here, they're talking about international and property investors, people who owned property in Queenstown. Now, I am assuming this, and maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong or expand on this, that if you own property in New Zealand that's a rental, that means you're going to need to have a New Zealand bank account, which means you're going to need to have an IRD number because that's going to be income, which means you're going to need to pay tax. So it makes complete sense to me. Not that it's okay, but that would be the reason that a property investor, and the example they used last night was in China, received the payment when they shouldn't have, because in that first round of payments, basically IRD just gave it to everybody who earned under $70,000 and who had a valid IRD number and who was based in New Zealand as far as they knew. There were some mistakes, but so I can see how that was the case, but But yeah, last night it was confusing because everyone was like, we don't know why this has happened. So that says to me maybe my explanation isn't right, because my explanation seems simple and easy. And if it was that, then they would know. So I don't know. Yeah. Let me say something before we go on to this clip. We do have this as an audio podcast. If you're someone that listens to our audio podcast, I just wanted to give you a heads up. The place that I upload the audio podcast at the moment is shutting down tonight. Right? It's shutting down tonight. It's no longer going to exist. Now, I have transported all the audio podcasts and everything to a new provider, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that if you do download the audio podcast, and if you don't, why don't you go and go and subscribe? I'm hoping it's going to work. I'm just giving you a heads up that if you are a regular that listens to the audio podcast as well, and it doesn't show up in your device tomorrow morning, I'll be looking at that and checking on that tomorrow to make sure it's all work, because there is a chance that I've set it up badly. Just so you know. Hey, let's have a look at this clip now with Grant Robertson, because this whole kind of conversation, talking about what we're talking about, is also talking about Nicola Willis and what it appears to me to be someone's, certainly in the House, I don't know, how do you say it, who looks more like the leader than the leader does, right? Now, this is a commentary. This is why we didn't include it in the last one. This is a commentary about. This is devastating, actually. What Grant Robertson does is devastating, because he's talking about how National will not rule out Destiny Church, right? It's a devastating piece that Robertson does. However, the comeback from Nicola Willis, although the facts and figures within it are a little bit trite, the persona and what she puts out there looks far more leaderly. Is that a word? Leadership-like than when we were watching Luxon in the House yesterday. So have a look at this. This first part is about not discounting using Brian Tamaki as a partner.
What Mr. Luxon has done by failing to rule out Brian Tamaki undermines the inclusive and accepting society that I would have hoped he would have been part of. Now, Mr. Speaker, it's probably in the Labor Party's interest for Christopher Luxon to go on deciding that he does not want to rule out Brian Tamaki. I am pleading with Mr. Luxon to do the right thing. Do not say to young gay New Zealanders that they don't matter. Do not say to the women of New Zealand that they don't have a place in leadership. Because, Mr. Luxon, you will be judged by the company you keep. You have a chance and you have an opportunity to stand up for New Zealanders' values. Do the right thing, Mr. Luxon. Rule out working with Brian Tamaki, or else New Zealanders will continue to believe you stand for extremism. You stand for bigotry, Mr. Speaker. Rule out Brian Tamaki.
Devastating, like a little bit vitriolic, that you stand for extremism and stuff, and there'll be many New Zealanders who, and I'm not even saying fans of Brian Tamaki, who don't consider him to be extremism, but there are plenty who do. But devastating commentary, like really, really good, really clear, really basically a very clever moment in the House where he's basically saying sort of what we said, actually. It's good for the left to have Brian Tamaki out there because it's going to drag some votes from ACT and from the Conservatives and from National across to them. It's good. He basically said it in the House, saying it's good for us, So, but he's basically going, we will give that up. If you denounce him, you should denounce him. So devastating, a fantastic message. You want to comment on the message before I go on there, Chewy? Because it was...
Yeah, Grant Robinson's, when he gets on a tear, he's fucking good. But look, let's not forget that Luxon is not too far removed from Destiny Church. Why would he rule them out? He comes from a nut bar Pentecostal church as well, which he wants everyone to desperately forget about. So yeah, he might not like some of what Destiny stands for, but he does stand for some of the things that they do as well.
Yeah, it's true. So this is now, I actually have to say what I'm saying about Nicola Willis here when in the title to this show tonight about is she the leader that National needs. I actually don't think that necessarily the substance of what she's saying is fantastic, because how can you come back against that? Like that was devastating. But she goes straight to the Kiwisaver tax thing, and she has the appearance and the kind of I'll say the mana, but that kind of vibe of a leader. She really does. If you haven't seen this is Nicola Willis in the House. And if you're with us yesterday, just think how seeing Christopher Luxon in the House yesterday, holding his papers like this and going, does she agree that and this is what a leader looks like?
Speaker.
Nicola Willis.
He'll have to do a lot better than that. Because the country's going backwards at a rate of knots, and all the Minister of Finance wants to do is platform the rantings of a crazy pastor who no one wants to engage with.
Now, that there's a hole there who no one wants to engage with. Then National should be saying we don't want to engage with him. So like I said, the content of what she's saying is one thing, but this is the bit where she switches into the tech stuff.
Why does he want to do that? Because this is Labour's day of shame. This is their day of shame. Look at them over there, shamefaced, caught red-handed with their hands in New Zealanders' Kiwisaver accounts.
You can't really question that either. A good reply. I mean, it was a bit clunky from now, but what I'm saying is how she has portrayed herself, how she has come across, much more leadership-like than.
The fuck is this?
I can hear you. What's going on there, Joey? You're right.
I have no idea. Everything just blacked out and it's kind of come back apart from my camera.
All I heard was, what the fuck is this? So anyway, that's that.
Look, the thing with Question Time in the House is that there is an element of theatre to it as well. And yeah, when Luxon's doing his speeches, it just seems to be more that he's doing his high school book report more than anything. Whereas Willis got up and just, like, again, I'm not talking about the content of it. It was really whataboutism and all of that in its glory. But at least she's giving it some fire. You know, to be honest, I think you're right. I think you're looking at the leader that National probably should have and may have by the time the election rolls around. Who knows?
I don't think that's going to happen. Personally, I don't think that's going to happen. But
I think things would have to go pretty bloody sideways for that to happen. Personally,
yeah.
But you never know.
Yeah. I'm going to take you out of the screen for a second and see if us doing this will bring your camera back. Because at the moment, you're a beautiful freeze frame. And then, there you go. You're back. You did something.
Yeah, you can hear me as well?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay.
You're back. Yeah. And look, I just think that you don't need to be loud and abrasive and stuff to be a leader, but just the two comparisons. And if I was a decent broadcaster, I'd have them side by side right now. But yesterday with Luxon reading from his notes, being quite quiet and, and her not taking any shit in the house. Although, as I say, the content of what she said wasn't particularly good for half of it, but the appearance of what she was someone, like a leader is someone that you would get behind and follow after. And that kind of energy is someone you'd follow after. Do you know what I'm saying?
I also liked at one point, maybe it was the angle of the camera or whatever, but when she got up, it almost looked like she was about to elbow Christopher Luxon in the face. So, again, that could happen one day. You never know.
Hey, it's not too far off 11 o'clock. It's about 6 or 7 minutes away. So let's jump on to the last story of the day. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this today is because you are kin to some of these people on some level, being a stand-up comedian yourself.
Oh, yes.
So Guy Williams this morning slammed Louis C.K., calling him an abuser. He also called him... I can't remember the right word. I won't misquote him. I'll just play the piece. And I really wanted to have a look at this, and I wanted to have a look at what Guy Williams is saying and what society is now doing. So I will let Guy Williams set this up first, and then I'll explain again what happened to Louis C.K. and why he is being deemed by some as an abuser, a predator, that was the word, or a predator. And then we'll talk about that. If you watched us for long enough, you know that we believe in redemption stories. And the last time we talked about this was Sam Uffindell, to be clear, to be fair. But we also know that sometimes people cross lines that if they don't mea culpa, and if they don't kind of show remorse and make amends, like there's work to do to come back into society. And Guy Williams is saying, you'll hear him very clearly saying, Louis C.K. hasn't done the work. We'll then have a look at it and get people's take on it to see what the situation is. So here's Guy Williams talking about Louis C.K. coming to New Zealand.
It's a bit dodgy that Louis C.K. is coming here. We're like the new Israel, you know, when like Louis C.K. got cancelled originally. Feel like he's going to Israel, and that's not a good sign. And when you're a comedian, a big-time comedian like him, and you're coming to New Zealand, that's not a good sign for your career, eh?
Really?
Can I just say as well on that point? That's the first point. Like I like Guy. I've had him on the podcast a few times. We nearly had him on when the Leo Malloy thing happened as well. But at the moment, like in the last 12 months. You know, Russell Howard's been here, Tom Segura's coming early next year, Louis C.K.'s coming, Bill Bailey's coming, or Bean, sorry. So I don't know if quite I agree with that point. Like if Jimmy Carr was in New Zealand, I think Jimmy Carr's coming back as well, actually.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The point that Guy's making is, if you're a big time comedian and you come here, you must have done something terrible. I think, what are all those other guys who seem to be coming here as well? Little side point about the whole thing, but let's keep going.
You're like almost running away. I'm sure he's doing all the big American centers as well, but it is kind of grim, because Louis C.K., for people who don't know, is one of the, you know, he's probably the best comedian in the world, and he's kind of brushed away these very serious allegations against him. And for me, it's kind of depressing because, you know, the question's always been, why aren't there more women in comedy? And I think the honest answer is because of sexual assault and, you know, predators like Louis C.K.
So a question for you, Chewy. Now, that to me seems like a really big claim. And look, I'm not in this world, so I don't know. But to state very clearly from a very high-profile New Zealand comedian that the reason there aren't more women in comedy is because of sexual assault. Now, that's a massive claim. That's not like because of, you know, like sexual discrimination or that, but sexual assault. How does that relate to you? I mean, you do comedy clubs and you go around and you see what's going on at the moment. How do you feel about that particular statement?
Look, I haven't seen anything like that myself. Dunedin's lucky to have a really close, supportive comedy network. But you know, you wouldn't have to be on Twitter very long in comedy circles before you hear of some sort of gross behavior or sexist comment being directed at female comedians. It can be very, very hostile.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a reason why a lot of the female comedians that do persevere are very, very good, is because they have had to put up with all of that. You know, it's famously mentally stable group of people are comedians, just generally well balanced. And I mean, look, I've spent a lot of time around open mics and fresh meat and raw competitions and that sort of thing. And one of the worst things I can hear from a new comedian is, you know, a comment that Louis C.K. is one of their favorite comedians, because you know you're going to get the thing of I want to be an edgy comedian. It doesn't start from I want to be a funny comedian. And usually you get some really, really just shockingly bad jokes that just leave a room, a vacuum, rather than people laughing, and then you never see them again. So yeah, I kind of get where he's coming from there. I haven't seen assault, but I get that it can be a pretty hostile place.
Yeah, I know, 100%. I think that's the same as for women in general and all sorts of any kind of public life. Always get it a heck of a lot worse than the men, which is repugnant. It's interesting because even Guy talks about Louis C.K. as being the best comedian in the world, and I think probably 5 or 6 years ago that's probably a fair statement. So when you hear someone saying that he's their favorite comedian, is it just because in 2022, Louis C.K. is deemed in that world as sort of maybe 10 years ago what we thought of a 1950s comedian was, sort of something of yesteryear, and they're not currently relevant, like in comedic circles? Because if he's to say that he's the best comedian in the world, well, let's say before all the stuff happened, if someone says to me they want to be like Louis C.K., does that therefore mean that they just want to say the N-word a lot, which is one of Louis C.K.'s things, and he's talked about that,
yes,
or that they want to be the best in the world?
Yeah, no, I definitely, it has always felt like I want to be like Louis C.K., so I want to shock people.
Right.
You know, it's you can shock people with comedy. That's absolutely fine. But it's got to be funny as well. And that's the balance that a lot of people don't
Yeah,
get.
so the foundation needs to be funny. The foundation can't be edgy.
And I'm not saying that Louis C.K. isn't funny. He has done some stuff that still to this day makes me howl. But it's that argument. Do you separate the art from the artist? And the problem is with a comedian, the art is the artist. And in this case, the artist is a serial masturbator who has leveraged his power and reputation in the industry. And look, have you had any experience of being in a green room?
Yeah.
So there are some nice green rooms, and there are some really shitty green rooms. And I guarantee you, all the shitty green rooms are in comedy clubs. And the idea of someone with the reputation that Louis C.K. has, and you're the female on the bill who's trying to make a career, this comedy hero walks in and whips out his dick. What do? There's some great comments from Sarah Silverman around this, because she's very close with Louis C.K. and you can kind of see the progression of her thought process over the space of a couple of months of like, it's just Louis. But she's known him for years.
Yeah.
Whereas you sort of see her go, but again, if I was a new comedian coming up and had a break as being the opener on one of his shows, that's not a good time. Because it's the power dynamic. You have no power. What are you going to do?
And I think, look, this has got another 60 seconds to play what Guy said. And then what I'm actually going to do is go and remind people what happened, what he did, and what the outcome was. What was. And what I want to ask the question at the end, and there may be no answer to this, is there a way back for anybody? Like, what does someone need to do to come back? And I'm not doing this from a position of defense for Louis C.K. I obviously don't know him. It's got nothing to do with that. But I'm interested as to should you go away and shut up and never be seen again? Or is there a way back? And for some people, like someone's talking in the chat about, can we expect a Cosby tour? I think for Cosby, there's no way back. doesn't matter what happens. I think for Cosby, there's no way back. And I'm not trying to equivocate between, sexual criminality or whatever the correct word would be. But is there a way back? It's something to think about. So let's just play this last 60 seconds. And then I'll show people a few things. And then really it's up to you what you do with that from there.
And so it's a really tough one, because so when people want to go, I find him funny, so I'm going to go watch the show. But I think anyone trying to buy tickets, and I know I'm promoting this show here by talking about it, but like, you have to think this guy is an abuser and doesn't really repent for what he's done and tried to suppress the allegations against him for so many years. I don't think it's very ethical to go and support a comedian like him, I think.
So you think he should be cancelled? He was effectively cancelled and then brought back.
Well, he hasn't been cancelled because comedians are self-employed, so people can get cancelled. You guys can get cancelled because you've got a job here at a show. Your employer can fire you. But I'm self-employed. I can't get cancelled. He's got a huge fan base. He can just continue to tour for as long as he wants. He won the Grammy last year, so even the Grammys are kind of endorsing him. But I think that he doesn't realize the magnitude of what he's done, as so many men don't realize the seriousness of sexual harassment and sexual assault. So in my mind, he's not someone who's worth bringing back, but he can obviously tour and do whatever he wants.
Okay, so before I start some stuff there, Chewy, what are your thoughts? Are you in concurrence?
I think he's bang on about, people hold Louis up as being someone that was cancelled. He wasn't cancelled. He went on holiday. He just stopped doing, he lived off his residuals. He's big enough that he can just put his head down. But during that time, did we see or hear anything of him trying to put things right, or, as you said, do the work?
Yeah,
I haven't seen anything of him doing jack shit. He just disappeared for a while, and then, as Guy says, he won a Grammy. Dude hasn't been cancelled. He will sell tickets to this show.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody is trying to bar him from the country. He wasn't charged with anything, so he can't be denied the chance to come here. But I think I'm on Guy's side here, is that I don't think that it's ethical to go.
So you think people, it's an ethical choice. People buy tickets, it's unethical.
Yeah, and a lot of people conflate that people saying, "Hey, look, I don't think he's a good dude. You shouldn't go." Oh, you're trying to cancel someone. No, you're not. You're just saying, look, I wouldn't be able to separate him and what he's done from the comedy.
It's hard, eh? Like I when I see a Will Smith image come across Netflix or something at the moment, I can't separate it from that slap, like from that action he took. I'm like, I don't want. It's not. I'm not. He wasn't one of my favorite actors for his skill set, but the kinds of movies he did, I sort of loved. So yeah, I get that. I get it all together.
I mean, I'd be real interested to see who's opening for him, as an example, who his warm up is.
Sure.
Probably not a woman. Just saying, for a couple of reasons. But yeah, if you want to go see a comedy
maybe it will be. Maybe that's the exact thing it will be. I don't know. Maybe that's
I hope there's cameras in the green room. That's all I'm going to say for that one. But yeah, it's just go and see another comedian. Go and see a female comedian, because there's some great ones.
So what I want to do now, because I'm glad you've put out your stuff now, I want to remind people about what the story was. And I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything, but I want to see, once we re-unpack the story, if it makes any difference. And I'm not expecting it will, because in my head I kind of go, is there a way back for people at all? And look, I don't want to, I mean, you're welcome to tweet at me, but I'm not suggesting this. I'm not trying to defend Louis C.K. or say, we should forgive him. I'm actually wondering what happens. Should they go away and reflect and never come back into the public eye again, or what? Like, I'll tell you something. There's a guy, and I won't mention his name, obviously. There was a comic actor. He wasn't a stand-up comedian, a comic actor in New Zealand, who was quite high profile at the time. Got very, 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 very drunk. Went home. This is all public knowledge in the news. They probably called him an entertainer, because it's what they normally do. Went home very, 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 very drunk, and committed assault on, I think it was his stepdaughter, a sexual assault, getting into a bed thinking it was his partner. Now,
yes, I remember that. I can't remember who it is, but I remember the story.
I know who it is and who it was. That person, and that name never came out, and that person was never seen again. Never, ever seen again. It's whatever it is now, 15 years later. They've never gone back into the entertainment world. They don't exist in that level anymore. So that happens, and for some people that needs to happen. And I guess what I'm wondering, and just because I'm interested, is Louis C.K. one of those people that should go away and never be seen again? So let's have a look at what happened. And what I've done is I've actually brought up his statement that he made, because the other things that guy was saying was that he doesn't repent on what he's done, and he's tried to get away from it, and he's tried to suppress it. Right? So this was the statement that Louis C.K. put out after the offending happened. We call it offending, is that what we call it? So this is 2017. So this is 5 years ago. I'll read you some of the extracts from it. When he talks about what happened in front of these women, these stories are true. At the time, I said to myself, what I did was okay, because I never showed a woman my dick. It sounds so weird saying that out loud, without asking first, which is also true. But what I learned later in life, too late, is that when you have power over another person, asking them to look at your dick isn't a question, it's a predicament for them. The power I had over these women is why they admired me, and I wielded that power irresponsibly. I've been remorseful for my actions. I have tried to learn from them and run from them. Now I'm aware of the extent of my impact of my actions. I learned yesterday to the extent to which I left these women who admired me feeling badly about themselves and cautious around other men who would have never put themselves in that position. I'm not going to read the whole thing. He ended up by saying, the hardest regret to live with is what you've done to hurt someone else. And I can hardly wrap my head around the scope of hurt I brought them. I'd be remiss to exclude the hurt that I brought on people who I work with and have worked with, whose professional and personal lives have been impacted by all of this, including projects currently in production. And he mentions a whole bunch of productions. I deeply regret that this brought negative attention to my manager, and he mentions him. I've brought anguish and hardship to people at FX who have given me so much. The Orchard, don't know what that is, who took a chance on my movie, and every other entity that has bet on me through the years. I've brought pain to my family, my friends, my children, and my mother. I've spent my long and lucky career taking and saying anything I want. I will now step back and take a long time to listen. So that was what he said afterwards. And when Guy was saying he hasn't been cancelled. I think that's true, but it's probably appropriate to say what did happen to him. And after that happened, FX cut all ties with him. Today, FX Networks and FX Productions are ending our association with Louis C.K. We are cancelling the overall deal between FX Productions and his production company. He will no longer serve as executive producer or receive compensation in any way for 4 shows we were producing with him: Better Things, Basket One Mississippi, and The Oops. Netflix cancelled his upcoming planned stand-up special, but will keep his previous specials on its service. HBO pulled all Louis C.K. content from its on-demand library and production company. The Orchard has scrapped its plan to distribute his new film, I Love You, Daddy. Universal Pictures and Illumination also announced that they'd terminated their relationship with Louis C.K. on The Secret Life of Pets 2. Louis C.K.'s longtime publicist, Louis K., also tweeted that he would no longer represent the comedian. Now, does that leave you in exactly the same place? Because for me, like, forgetting the subject matter a little bit, the words that Guy used about no repentance, no that kind of stuff, don't seem to line up with what was said. Now, I don't know about repentance. Repentance is internal, so nobody knows the truth. And I'm wondering, when we talk about the Uffendale situation, for example, and that wasn't sexual, obviously, there doesn't seem to be any mea culpa there. In this instance, it seems to be some. Now, it's really serious, and I'm not trying to minimize the events of what he did, but is there a path back for people who do appear to look like they're trying to make a difference?
It's still, I don't know. So as far as statements go, and I remember thinking this at the time, that his apology statement absolutely nailed it in ways that a lot of other people that have been pinged for similar sort of things and put out a "my bad, I'm so sorry" statement didn't do. Like the first half of that first bit you read absolutely nails. He understands exactly what he did. And he certainly paid a price because he has been silent for about 5 years.
But I think probably by his choice. I think so. I think he did go away.
Yeah, because if you tried to push on too early, well, I mean, we're doing it right now. We're discussing what he did. If he did it too early, it'd just be louder.
Yeah.
But yeah, he certainly paid a price and had to take a little bit of a holiday and live off your residuals and whatever you've got in the bank. And I'm sure he had some money in the bank. But then it comes back to what I said. What has he done? He's had stuff done to him, but has he done any sort of remediation, any counseling, And I think that's also a difficult thing, like, because you could say that, I've gone into rehab for fucking sex addiction or something like that, and everybody goes, oh yeah, okay, But yeah, I don't know. You don't see the changed person. Has his comedy changed? Who knows?
Or we can find that out.
I certainly wouldn't go. I still would not go out and buy a ticket. Myself personally, only speaking for myself.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think there is a path back for that person that would ever leave you to a position where you might want to buy a ticket? Or do you think in your eyes he's done forever? Like, what would you need to see personally?
Support from other people, like people that actually count.
Like who?
Like other female comedians. I know he's had a lot of support from Sarah Silverman over the years.
Yep.
But yeah, I think I would need to see some support from other people, some change in his traditional comedy, some people willing to be on lineups with him and that sort of thing. It'd be great to see a big fat donation to some sort of support group or that sort of thing. But yeah, if someone goes completely silent, like he has been pretty much running silent for 5 years, it's really hard to say whether he's learned anything, or are we just going to see Louis C.K. just doing the hits when it comes to New Zealand?
I kind of feel like, I don't know, the one that he won the Grammy for, I think it's called Sorry. So he did a tour over America, and the show was called Sorry, I think. I haven't seen it, but it makes me kind of think maybe there's a reason to watch it. to see if he's changed. But then so many people don't want to watch it because of this, and then they won't see if he's changed. So what do you do then?
Yeah. I think part of the thing with Louis' whole thing is that it's very self-deprecating, and I'm a dirtbag, and that sort of thing as well. So it's always a little bit of comedy is sometimes a more hyped up version of reality, that sort of thing. And it's like, well, are we getting a character? Are we getting a bit, or are we seeing a true insight sort of thing? It is interesting, and I mean, he was part of the whole Me Too thing. This is a very similar thing that Harvey Weinstein went down for, apart from Harvey went a little bit further. But
it's not. I don't personally, look, not to defend anyone. I don't think that's fair. I think
I'm saying
there are economies of scale. I'm not saying anything's
absolutely.
okay, but there are economies of scale.
Absolutely, and I'm not talking about the scale that Harvey was guilty of, but I'm talking about that abuse of the power dynamic.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
totally. I wonder, and the other thing is the whole Me Too movement. And this is just a ponderance from the outside looking in. I wonder if that hadn't been happening at that time and it had have come out, he would have maybe just continued on. Like he probably would have done the same mea culpa and apologized, but there might have been no stand down. He would have gone, I messed up. Jimmy Carr's a really good example, actually. And if I could probably find it quite quickly if I wanted to look for it. Jimmy Carr never cheated on his taxes, but he had an accountant that found kind of some Cayman Island loopholes. And he ended up like using those loopholes and basically paying no tax. Now, he did nothing illegal and nothing wrong, but it was a really bad look. And there's a very good 8 out of 10 Cats episode. 8 out of 10 Cats is a show in the UK where they look at the biggest news headlines of the week. And of course, the week that happened, Jimmy Carr was one of the biggest news headlines of the week. And so they talked about it in 8 out of 10 Cats. And what Jimmy Carr did was, like, John Richardson said something to him like, I think what they're saying is they're angry because you didn't pay enough tax, and we always complain about things that not enough tax. Nurses don't get paid enough, and he made the case that nurses don't get paid enough. People complain about that, and they don't get paid enough because people don't pay enough tax, and that's why they're angry at you because you didn't pay enough tax. And Jimmy Carr said something like, well, my response to that is, and he went, nothing. You're 100% right. I've got nothing to respond to that. You're right. I'm wrong. And it was this complete mea culpa, and it wasn't obviously anything that was sexual or anything like that. But Jimmy never stopped anything. He kept on going and kept on working. It was all about that mea culpa he did, and went, yes, I was wrong. I did it wrong. I did it based on my accountant. I've made a mistake. I apologize. And I literally have no defense for it. And it's a really good clip to watch if you want to see what it looks like to do an absolute mea culpa where you go, I have nothing I can defend myself with. You are 100% correct.
I mean, the comparison with Jimmy Carr's an interesting one because he's a comedian that I really like in some formats, and then in others I really don't. Like Louis, I loved the program Louis more than I liked his stand-up. I liked his appearances on Saturday Night Live more than I liked his stand-up. Jimmy Carr's the same. I enjoy him on panel shows and roast battles and that sort of thing. I don't enjoy a stand-up. But both of those guys have built a career out of being really edgy, going right up to and sometimes over the line.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Carr has said some incredibly distasteful stuff. But he keeps touring. He keeps making money.
There is that, and I mean, this is the interesting time we're in society. And I was talking to one of my kids the other day about the phase of life we're in right now for language. And language at the moment is changing and manipulating and moving around, and words that meant something 15 years ago don't mean that today. And in 15 years from now, they might mean something different again. So we're in this real transitional stage when it comes to, is that what it is? YouTube, Jimmy Carr speechless over tax avoidance joke. New 8 out of 10. There you go. So Davis just told us what to Google if you want to look it up for yourself. And I lost my train of thought there for a second. I was talking about Jimmy Carr, wasn't I? I wonder about, like, I hear some of Jimmy Carr's jokes. what I was going to say is there always has seemed to be, and I listen to and talk to a lot of comedians, yeah, like as in podcasts and working with sort of thing. And there's always seems to have been that idea that there's a contract you sign with a comedian when you walk into a comedy club. You know it's not real. Their job is to kind of do make believe, and what they're saying from up the front doesn't matter. But because we're in this transitional stage of language right now, and words are meaning different things than they did 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever, and we're in the moment that it's transitioning those words, and we'll get to a point, like I talked to someone the other day about what the word gay meant, right? And at some point in time, the only definition for the word gay was happy. That's all it meant. And then at another point in time, pretty much the only way it was used is in the LGBT kind of way. You know, a gay person, a gay man, a homosexual man was gay. There was a transition between those two times. Yeah. There was one day before it started to get used in the LGBT community that it only meant happy. And then there was one day up here where no one ever used it for happy again. That period was the transitional stage of that word and that part of language where there was disagreements amongst all sorts of people. No, gay doesn't mean that. It means this. No, gay means this. No, this is why we use gay now. No. And I think for lots of language at the moment, we're literally in that transition right now where a word used to mean something. We're transitioning in it. So half of the people think it means one thing, half of them think it means another, lots of words. And at some stage, there'll be a decision made where those words will never be used like that again. And because we're in that kind of crunchy phase of life, as I like to call it, I think that doesn't help things like stand-up comedians and people speaking from the front and people trying to make people laugh on various, setups and words and things they're saying, because some people in the audience will hear those words and say it means something else, and other people will think it means something else. So yeah, I think for you stand-up comedians, man, I'm not going to say it's tough like you're out there fucking digging ditches in World War II, but it's an interesting
on the front lines, mate. Nobody signed up for this.
You know what I mean? It's an interesting time, and I think part of our transitional language, I mean literally in 2022, like the transition the English-speaking world is making with language is adding to the friction and the difficulty of these conversations, not helping it.
Yeah. Look, you see people say, oh, it must be hard to be in comedy because you can't say this, you can't say that. You can say anything you fucking want when you're up on stage with a microphone. The question is, are those people going to tell people to go and see your show because you're hilarious? Or are they going to go, avoid this guy, he's a dick?
Yeah.
You know? When you're in front of a room of 150, 200 people and you're telling a joke, not everybody's going to hear it the same way or take it in the vein that it's given. When I started out, I had a joke that I thought was fine, absolutely fine. And then one person came up after the show and went, I thought that was, a bit odd what you said. I had a joke about why I left Wellington, the reasons I left Wellington. And it was about a thing that actually happened. There was a brawl of between drag queens outside my house. And one version of the joke, that was the reason that I left Wellington, because they'd seen me watching and had gone, what are you looking at? And so obviously I had to leave town. Now I thought that was fine. Lots of people laughed at that. But one person said there must be a better way to say that. And I changed it slightly. And I changed it into a better joke. I left Wellington because after you've seen that, what else is there to see? Now, one of those jokes is kind of punching down on a group of people. They're scary and you don't want to live in the same street anymore because of this happened. And the other one is that once you've seen someone try and defend their wig with a platform shoe, nothing's going to surprise you anymore. And some people take feedback like that very well. Some comedians. And some comedians don't. I'm being censored. You're trying, all of that sort of stuff. To be a comedian, you've got to be brave and have a bit of a thick skin, but you've also got to have an open mind as well. Some people do, some people don't.
And I think it's probably easier obviously, if you're the Rolling Stones, it's easier than if you're the pub band down the road to make decisions. And if you're a massive comedian, as you're saying, Louis C.K. is and was, possibly has become full circle to wrap up, even if you were a disgustingly horrible predator, abuser, if you live in America where there's 340 million people, it doesn't take very much to go on a tour where you can speak to 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 people at $80 a ticket and live very comfortably anyway. Very different from New Zealand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Louis got the same problem I have. Not the serial masturbating. I'll tell you that much.
But the ginger.
Yes. He's a cis white male as well. So me and Louis C.K., we're the same, right? That's what I'm saying. So come and see my show and pay the same ticket amount. I beg you, please.
Are you got any gigs coming up shortly? Would it be a perfect time?
I actually don't. I am. So I've been doing comedy now for about 5 or 6 years, and I think the thing that people don't understand about comedy often is that you end up doing a lot of the same routine again and again and again and again, and you polish and you change it, and
it's like a band. That's no different from a band playing their latest album. Yeah,
exactly. But there's a lot of people that think with comedy that every time they go out and they see someone, it's a different act, or they've got new jokes, and the whole thing's different. But yeah, I've been basically riffing on the same material for about 4 or 5 years, and it's just got to a point where I want to try something else. So it's just in the early stages of making something, and I just want to build on that and then start gigging it around and that sort of thing. I mean, the past year or 2 years now, I haven't really wanted to go out and do shows. And
I was going to say, you say you've been doing it for 5 years. Does that include the 3 years of the pandemic? So really, you've only been doing it for 2 years, or is that 5 years plus 3 is 8?
Oh, when did I come down to Dunedin?
1476.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. Yeah, I've been actively doing comedy for about 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Anything in that style we want to get to before we go? That's Labour Party stuff. What about just finishing on Jonty? Because that's pretty true, actually. Yeah. Fired up Grant Robertson is a great sight to see. He's like a I don't know, like a Rolling Stone, just like a Terminator, just goes for it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Hey, let's get out of here. Chewy, me and you always talk for too long, unless you want to finish with anything. Seeing you're out.
No. We are approaching an hour and a half of our hour-long show. So
now. Remember again, as you can see scrolling down the bottom, we do this as a daily audio podcast as well. My provider is shutting down tonight. I have tried to transport everything across to a new provider, but if you're somebody who subscribed to either Google Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Rover, and you don't get an episode tomorrow, then I'll sort it out tomorrow. I'll have a look to see if it's worked or not. But just a heads up.
He'll hand deliver the audio podcast to your letterbox. Just
definitely.
Put your address in the chat.
$13,000 delivery fee. Happy to do that. All right, guys. Ro is suggesting everyone should hit the like button. That's a good idea, Ro. Well done. Smash that like button. Hit that bell. Something like that. Although, is everyone watching? All these comments are on YouTube. It is interesting how we get all our comments on YouTube, actually. Very rarely do we get one on Facebook or Twitter or Twitch, but yeah, they're all pretty much all YouTube. Very good. All right, guys, we'll catch you tomorrow night from 10 p.m. Thanks for joining us tonight. Another big hairy news in the can. Talk to you next time. Hooroo.